Today, we are once again talking about the market manipulation that is potentially going on within the sports card industry, specifically off the back of businesses using private sales to pump up an index that they are creating to therefore get people to invest in. The reason why this makes me very nervous is when you're talking about private sales, that gives people the opportunity to collude, create fictitious sales in order to make more profits for themselves. And I don't think we're seeing enough pushback on this particular story, on this particular business, and I really want to know what you guys have to say down in the comments below, because they just made another acquisition today, this time with a Luka Doncic rookie card, a one-of-one logo man out of Flawless, and it's making me very uneasy because he's broke yet another sale and yet apparently sold for $4.7 million USD via a private sale, and we're not seeing anywhere near enough pushback on this, in my personal opinion. Now, the reason why this is super interesting, it doesn't just relate to this Luka Doncic card that I have on screen right now, that, as it does say, sold for $4.7 million USD, which, as Sports Card Investor has talked about, making it the most expensive Luka Doncic card of all time. The reason why this makes me nervous is because it was purchased by the business going by the name of Secure. Now, the people that are paying close attention to this hobby will know that Secure were the same people that purchased this dual logo man autograph of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan all the way back in October for $12.9 million USD, which I believe made this the most expensive modern sports card of all time. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below. The reason why this is interesting is because this business, Secure, is owned by Kevin O'Leary and this individual over here going by the name of Shine. Now, I'm sure you all know who Kevin O'Leary is. He's on Shark Tank, goes by the name of Mr. Wonderful. But Shine is a very wealthy individual going around buying sports cards for a number of years. He was one of the people tied up in that infamous scam with Logan Paul when it came to that fake Pokemon case. I believe he brokered the deal. And he's also got somewhat of a sketchy past. The reason why this is interesting, like I said, is that these individuals are involved. They own this business and they want to try and create what is known as the Wondershine Index, aka Mr. Wonderful and Shine, which is looking to establish the greatest sports cards within this industry in order to give people opportunities to purchase shares or buy and invest in these things. Now, the reason why that is sketchy is because this index so far has quite a few cards in it that were acquired via private sales, not to mention that Luka Doncic card that we just referenced for $4.7 million USD, but also this dual logo man autograph of Michael Jordan and LeBron James, as well as some of these other cards that you're seeing on screen right now. When you're talking about so many private acquisitions happening that don't have the opportunity to go through the public eyes or public markets, and you've then got a business looking to use those cards to create an index for investment, that makes me very nervous. And people that are sort of seeing that and saying it's A-okay, I think need to maybe go back to school and learn what kind of questions to ask and maybe learn how to apply some critical thinking, because that just seems, ripe for collusion. And maybe that's not happening, but when you're lacking total transparency here, that's where your mind goes with this sort of stuff. And we've seen it time and time again. We've seen it in the past with some of these other businesses that were looking to create fractionalized sports cards. They purchase these things, they give them ridiculous values, and then offer them as shares for people to buy in. And next minute, the market tanks, and those things are now worthless. Yet the people that took the money as part of that investment get to run away to the bank with a bag full of money. And like I said, that's probably not happening here, but I think it's worth asking the question. I think anybody with some critical thinking skills would be asking that from the get-go. And they'd be saying, hey, how do we get more transparency with this sort of stuff? Now, these guys are talking about wanting to create this index. They're referring it as an index, the Wondershine Index. Michael O'Leary basically went on Fox News, Fox Business, which I believe is what this is, and he's talking about his index, and he's talking about what they're looking to do, and he's talking about $1 billion industry and how you've got all these big cards that people want to invest in and they want to make money with long term. They're basically priming the market here for investment, and I don't like it, especially, like I said, when you're talking about private acquisitions. Like, how do we know that this $4.7 million is legitimate? Especially when it's a record-breaking sale, especially when it's the most expensive Luka Doncic card of all time, especially when this numpty hasn't won fucking anything yet. That you're paying that kind of money for this kind of thing. It's one of those things that just makes me really uneasy. And I don't know if I'm missing the point here, but how do people not see this and start asking questions? If you go back to the video when this was first announced that these guys were the ones who purchased this card, I mentioned I was disappointed because I would have much preferred to have seen this card go to a collector rather than a business, because my mind first went to, hey, maybe this is a marketing ploy. They've intentionally bid against themselves to push this record-breaking price out in order to get buzz generated about their business. And then it comes out that Kevin O'Leary is involved. It comes out that they're looking to create this index. And then my mind goes back to that and says, Well, who were the underbidders on this? How do we know that there was somebody legitimately also pushing this up to $12.9 million? Who's to say that it wasn't Shine and Kevin O'Leary betting against themselves or bidding against themselves to create this price point, to then justify their index, to then justify the hype? Now, obviously, that's not fact. I don't know if that's happened, but that's the question I ask when I see processes like this. I want to know what you guys have to say down below, because when I see a business looking to do this, right, and they're pushing these prices up and they're establishing all these record-breaking amounts, and then you have so many propped up from private sales as well, it's like, what is that going to do, long term? What's happening here? Are these things actually worth this amount of money? And then if they are creating these index, which, like I said, Kevin O'Leary, I said Michael O'Leary before, I meant Kevin O'Leary, is coming out to do this, like, what is that going to do? What are their intentions here? You've got a blow-in guy like Kevin O'Leary, who, like I talked about in this video over here, had very similar commentary about luxury watches in the past. And go look at some of the businesses that he was trying to align to there. It's a guy chasing cash, in my personal opinion. He doesn't give a shit about sports cards. He's just looking to make money. And I'm nervous about people that are going to see this and be like, hey, I'm going to chuck my money there. I'm going to put all my investment in there, and then guess what? It's going to turn to shit and you get burned. Maybe this thing turns out good. I don't know. All I'm saying is be smart with your money. If you're seeing stuff like this, ask these kinds of questions. Ask around the legitimacy of this sale. How do you know that this is a record-breaking sale? Like, how do we know this was legitimate? How do we know that two people didn't get together and say, hey, you know what? We're going to establish this business. Let's just pretend it's sold for $4.7 million, and I'll give you $100,000 on the side as a thank you for handing us this card. You actually sold to me for $2 million, but let's just do this. And you can get a bit more extra cash on the side. How do we know that's not happening here? Like, how do we know? And people will say that's very tinfoil hat, but if you look at all the hanky-panky that's going on around the world when it comes to financial markets like this, if there's a dollar to be made, if there's an edge to be had, people are going to find it in some capacity and try and take it for themselves. It's mind-boggling how people are seeing this and, out there chasing it. Here's Kevin O'Leary again talking about, wanting to create the #1 index in the world. I get really nervous about stuff like this. So I want to know what you have to say. I want to know what your thoughts are on this. I don't like it. I think we need more pushback, especially on people like Shine. He's DM'd me in the past. I've reached out to him before. He was, like I said, the broker for that, Logan Paul fake first edition Pokemon case. I think Shine was also trying to start a business with Logan Paul in the past. I think it was called Liquid Marketplace, and they were looking to do a similar thing. If I remember correctly, they were like purchasing cards and then looking to sell the shares for those respective cards. And I don't think it ever got off the ground. I might be wrong. People can confirm down below. But I think Shine was going by the name of Director of Assets for Liquid Marketplace. And it's just one of those things, guys. Like, we need some critical thinking here. We need some pushback. We need some challenge, because people are going to blindly see this and not say, hey, what's your relationship with the person you purchased the card from? How do we know this was actually a legitimate sale? How do we know that you transferred the money and then didn't transfer it back? How do we know that this was the amount you actually paid? How do we know the person you purchased it from is not getting any kickbacks? Like, how do we know that none of those things are happening? And then my question to you would be, if you don't care that that stuff is not being asked, you're comfortable with that not being disclosed, why are you comfortable? You might say, hey, I'm not going to go ahead and spend money on this, so why do I care? The reason why you should care if you're not going to invest this in yourself, right? If you're somebody saying, hey, I'm not dumb enough like that. There are a lot of people are dumb enough like that, unfortunately. We've seen that time and time again within this hobby. And when you've got people like Jeff Wilson talking about it and talking about secure collectibles and how they've now apparently tallied $27.6 million in pickups in the last 60 days, and they've teased more grails coming and they want to create this index, this guy's not pushing back enough. Sports card investors not challenging enough. So people are going to see this on the periphery of the hobby and think, hey, this guy with 300,000 subscribers is talking about this business. You've got Kevin O'Leary. I've seen him on TV. I've seen him on Shark Tank. This must be a good thing to try and do. We need pushback. We need questions. We need critical thinking. There's nothing wrong with asking these questions, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to try and hold these businesses accountable, especially when it comes to freaking private sales. I don't get it, guys. I don't get it. So anyway, share your thoughts down below. Apologies for that rant. I mispronounced Kevin O'Leary is Michael O'Leary, so I do apologize. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. And like I said in my last video, if you can give this video a like and a comment and a follow, I would really appreciate it. The YouTube algorithm has been brutal to me in the last few months, but your likes, comments, sharing the video will really, really help. So if you can do that for me, please do it. You can boost too if you want. That's a new feature within YouTube. Anything you can do helps. If you don't want to do anything, that's also okay. I'm not going to force you into doing anything. So, as always, guys, let me know your thoughts. I did speak to Card Ladder about this very quickly because this has made their way into their platform as a private sale. I did inquire about this and whether or not this was a legitimate sale. They've seen the receipts apparently, so they're comfortable with that being a private sale. Darren Ravel did ask a question over here because he seemed to indicate that Shine was the owner of this card. He was in fact not, and that has since been confirmed. by others as well as corrected by Darren Ravel over here. So in that case, I can understand maybe wanting to include it as a private sale. I'm still not a huge fan of private sales being in their platform, but if you guys will recall, when we spoke about that whole sports card therapist video like 2 years ago now, I'm the reason why private sales are now tracked differently in Card Ladder, because I said, guys, it's not good enough that you're not making a big enough distinction between the two. They now color code them as something different. So at least people that go into that platform are going to see private sales as something different, albeit me not liking them. It is what it is. That's their prerogative. That's them as a business. At least they're making that distinction. I want to know what your thoughts are on that down in the comments below as well. Anyway, that's my thoughts for today. Let me know. I don't get how the hobby loves this kind of stuff, man. It makes no fucking sense to me. Anyway, I'll see you guys. Cheers.